Zoids. Chaotic Century. This century was sure chaotic, wasn't it, Van?
It sure was. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so yes, we watched Zoids Chaotic Century. Doing another yapping about a thing that we watched. We've been on a Gundam kick, and we still have a lot of Gundam stuff to talk about. But we also took a little detour into the Zoids territory. I did not see Zoids Chaotic Century. I saw Zoids New Century, which we will also talk about in the future, but not for this one, because this is Chaotic Century. The first one. The first television show of Zoids. This is one that you watched as a youngin and really liked, and yeah, so there's a lot of you showing me, and well, I was gonna say, what did you think about your rewatching it?
Going through the rewatch, it definitely suffers from the early 2000s dubisms,
The dub wasn't too
and
bad, actually.
it wasn't too bad. There were some spots where it's like, this is clearly not what the characters were saying in that instance, but
True.
uh, but overall, it holds up. It holds up pretty well. All the 3D CGI holds up a lot better than I thought it would. Like,
Oh yeah.
I'm just gonna say, like some of the shots in this are like on par with what CGI anime is today,
For better or for worse.
for better or for worse.
So yeah, it was interesting to see early CG models like this. Just going into, because like, obviously I've done some stuff in Blender. My models made in Blender, and I noticed that there was some like lighting and shadow arrows. Maybe not arrows is the right way of putting it, but like pops, like using like color ramp, which is the primary way that I shade my model. And as you see me talking, you can kind of see the shadows pop in and out. And they use probably a similar system for these models. So like every once in a while, there'll be like a weird piece of geometry that like flickers
Or
on
like
that
click through.
yeah, or like, but like specifically with like the shadows, like it'll be like right on that razor's edge of the system trying to put it into shadow or put it into light, and so like it'll be like flickering back and forth. And there is some clipping because all the models are basically the same, and then there'll be episodes where it's like, oh, it's got like a special gun on his back, but clearly it's just kind of like the original model with a thing stuck on it, you know.
Yeah.
So it'll be a little bit of clippage there, but overall, like everything looked really pretty dang good for like really early CG.
True. There was like a couple episodes in the early like 10 to 15 episodes where there were a couple like characters just didn't look right. Some people had like some very large necks or very uneven eyes. It's the early 2000s art style, right?
True. Also, I'm trying to find a goddamn something to put on the background. Tell you what, I'm gonna find an image of the shield Lego. Shield Lego.
Can you use the Toonami promos from the Zoids?
Do you have a link of such a thing existing?
I probably could. Here in just a second. Zoids Toonami
Oh, maybe I don't want to. Maybe I want to hide.
promo.
Maybe I want to hide all this in the editing of me trying to find a fucking image to. And you seeing my Amazon list. There, that's a Zoid. That's him. I really should in the future make like a PowerPoint for this, but I didn't think about doing that. I forgot.
I for gore.
Oh, I could go to the Iron Bible. Iron Bible. Iron Bibble. Fan art, and then where's the Zoid anime? Zoid media? Zoid anime? Encyclopedia? Read encyclopedia? Image?
Zoid Bibble.
Go. Zoids. There they are. There's
Zoids.
Zoids over there. Anyway, going back, yeah, but overall, like I think my overall positives of the show, I had an old supervisor that offered what she called compliment sandwiches, which were a compliment, something that could use work, and then another compliment, and I like the way of doing that. So as far as the first compliment, I do have to say I actually quite enjoyed a lot of the characters. Uh, it did a pretty good shot. It's like midway through, they fight the big bad, which is the Death Sower. Death Sower.
Yeah, that's silver.
Which is kind of a weird name, but they fight the Death Sower, and that's sort of like the mid-season or like season 1 finale. Would you say is that kind of like how
Yeah,
it's
that's
broken
where
up?
season 1 ends, and then the time skip happens.
Yeah, but then it's like, yeah, so this group of ragtag people meet up, and classic anime plot, but group of ragtag people meet up, and then they find a bigger bad, and they have to fight the big bad, which turns out to be a ancient Zoid. I guess we can get into Zoid lore later, but an ancient Zoid called the Death Sower, which is like a big T-Rex with like lasers on its head. If I can.
A big old dinosaur. Big old death dinosaur mech.
Deathsaurus? No. Zoids.
Also, the big bad's name is Prozen. I did not know his first name was Gunther.
Gunther. Off. Deathsaur. Good enough. Deathsaur. It's a big dinosaur with lasers on its head. Yeah.
280 feet tall.
That's pretty dang. It's pretty dang big, considering everything else around it. But yeah, they fight the big plot point in the first season is that there's a war between the Republic and the Empire, which are two like political groups that use
your classic two sci-fi factions, the Zeons and the Federation.
Yeah, and then throughout the season, it turns out that like the Empire is kind of being pulled by Gunther into being more militaristic than it needs to be. Slash the Emperor, kid's an Emperor, right?
Yeah, the kid's
King?
the Emperor of the Republic.
No, the Republic had a president because she was in that in the White House.
Yeah, and then the Empire has the Emperor, and he had to leave because Gunther's like, "Oh, you want peace? Can't have that."
Cringe. I want the Death Sword, and I'm gonna rule the world with it. Classic like early kids show plot. But yeah, Gunther revives the Death Sword and Ancient Zoid and is gonna use it to take over the world. And main protagonists stop it. It's not particularly complex of a story, but I do like a lot of the characters have their own motivations, and they do the sort of the author Ursula Le Guin called it the tower and the net, where stakes raise and then the net of people that help the protagonist grow to allow them to climb the tower and overcome the challenges. So you get like this big expanding group of supporting characters from there was an officer in the Empire, I forget his name, but you know who I'm talking about, right?
The one with the brother that drives the Tauros, right?
Yes. You know the one. I don't remember his name. You know me, I'm not gonna remember any names, but that guy, he kind of turns into from a minor antagonist into like a supporting, not quite a full member of the group, but he's there, and he also has
a very supporting side member.
Yeah, and you also have some members from the Republic that they run into that like kidnap them in like the first couple of episodes, and then they're like, actually, they're not that bad, and they're kind of fighting on the side of good, and then they also kind of become supporting members from both sides, helping the main group. And yeah, overall, like that first season, it's like very solid, very simple, but like very solid. And I really like the characters, and even into the second season, where there's the time skip and the characters come apart, and then they have to, the net the net breaks apart while the stakes rise, and then it's like, oh, is the protagonist gonna make it? Oh, the net comes back together because this pirate group has Irvine. He's in it. He's doing it to try and catch the dudes who have been stealing the Zoids and get them back, right? You know the episode I'm talking about with the whale.
There were a couple episodes with the whale.
That's true. It doesn't narrow it down. But anyway, it's what I'm trying to say in a very long and rambling way is that the plot and the characters are very solid, if simple. There's not a whole lot of like, what? You know?
If you've seen like any kind of generic sci-fi fiction before with two empires, you've basically seen Zoids.
Well, it's not just two empires, because like when you say like the Xeon and the Federation, it's like the Federation versus Xeon is the main like plot still from A to B, where this is more like they start out as rivals and then there's a greater evil and then they come together and world peace is achieved against this greater evil consistently in Zoids. Where it's like first season it's Gunther is the greater evil that brings basically the Empire and the Republic together. Because they're like, no, we don't want you to rule the world with a giant metal dinosaur.
And then season 2, Gunther is also the big bad evil, except this time he's turned himself into a Zoid core.
Yes, but we'll get there. And then the second season is he's a Zoidian, right?
I believe so. I do not know off the top of my head.
That's fine. But the second season, so the big sort of MacGuffin the main character has, because this is also going to be part of the Zeke, Zoids. Where's that little guy? I like this image. I'm going to use this one.
There were a lot of like really solid characters now that I'm like looking through the actual list of all the characters.
Yeah. But basically, the big MacGuffin that the main character has is that he has his friend Zeke, and Zeke is an organoid, which is like, it's sort of like a Zoid, like a wild Zoid that can charge up other Zoids. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah, it's like, you know, in Transformers when they pull up the new MacGuffin that powers up the Transformers, it's like that.
Yeah.
Whether it be your Minicons, your Cyber Planet keys, whatever.
Yeah, so for the full first season, the big thing is like, hey, main character has an organoid. Both the Republic and the Empire would like to get their hands on that organoid. Oh wait, there's a big evil. We're going to instead let the main character and the organoid help us by defeating the big bad, right? That kind of thing. And then the second season is a rogues gallery of other people with organoids, including what's that kid that I hate? What's his name?
That would be Raven.
Raven, yes. Raven, there's another lady who is a Zoidian. Well, we'll talk a little bit about Zoids lore later, but who's a Zoidian, and then the other guy with his organoid. And their whole thing is, you're not going to guess it, but now that the Empire and the Republic have come together into a sort of common goal of prosperity for everyone, their goal is to take over the world again.
Yeah, and this episode and this time it kind of showed. In the first season, it was very much we're just kind of gonna wander around and solve problems every other episode. And this season it's kind of like, hey Van, you're now in charge of, you're now a member of the Guardian Force Fighters.
Guardian Force Fighters.
And now he's kind of going out and helping people under the name under the guise of being part of the military.
He's kind of part of the military. It's like the Guardian Force Fighters were like a collaborative effort between both the Empire and the Republic, right?
The UN, effectively.
Yeah, he's basically like an agent of the UN. going around, and that's going to be my big criticism in the middle of that compliment sandwich. There was a lot of monster of the week, not episodes. Its run time is like what, 67 episodes, something like that.
I believe it was 67.
Damn, nailed it. Uh, and I'm gonna be honest, like maybe like 20 episodes are like surrounding the main plot. The others are like individual characters, which do show up and support characters for sure. Sometimes it's a ghost though. Sometimes it's just a ghost.
Sometimes it's just a racing episode.
That was kind of peak, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, the manta ray with the flames on it. Oh,
I also had the gun sniper JFK assassination plot, which was kind of cool. What if Lee Harvey Oswald used a metal velociraptor to kill JFK? Gun sniper Zoids.
But yeah, while Van is with the Guardian Force and doing all these things, helping all these people, taking out corruption in the military, he's also searching for ruins and kind of anything that can help them find what this Zoid Eve MacGuffin.
Yes, and
Which,
should we just talk about Zoid lore now? Because we've been using a lot of terms like Zoid Eve, Zoid Core, Organoid, Zoidian.
Okay, so let's go back to episode 1.
Episode 1.
Episode 1, Van is being chased by a couple of the Scorpion mechs for some reason unknown.
Yes.
Stumbles upon a ancient facility and goes inside, mucks about, finds a big tube, opens the big tube, and out pops the dinosaur Zeke, or the organoid, I guess. And also in that pod was Fiona, a young girl who has amnesia and doesn't remember anything but her name. Well, actually, she doesn't even remember her name because Van gives her the name Fiona.
Shoot, I was trying to find a picture of the scorpions. That's fine. Index Zoids.
And then her whole thing is that she wants to find this thing called the Zoid Eve, but nobody knows what the Zoid Eve is.
Oh gosh. There's something with a G, right?
Galapagos?
Nah. Damn. Is it the Guyzak? It was the Guyzak. Oh my god, I'm so smart. I can remember names of the robots, but I can't remember names of the people. That's very on brand. But yeah, so he stumbles across a ruin. In it is Zeke, and also in it is Fiona. We come to learn that Fiona is a member of the race called Zoidians. But I feel like we should also kind of talk a little bit about Zoid lore, which, to be fair, is not presented much in the show. A lot of it comes from, this site. Well, I was going to say this site, but this site is based on an old lore book called, I believe, the Zoid Bible. Something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called the Zoid Bible. It's one of those, it's like Pokemon, where you look at the surface and it's like, cute monsters with human companions, whatever. But then as soon as you dig 2 feet under that premise, it's like, ooh, there's a lot of things going on here.
Zoid's Bible translated.
We should probably just go ahead and state it up front that Zoids are effectively lobotomized animals.
And you might argue and be like, no, but here's the picture from the fucking thing.
Oh my god.
So, actually, I read through the translated version of this. Basically, the planet Z, which is where this takes place. We're going to do a quick history lesson on Zoids. Planet Z is the main source of life, evolves around chemosynthesis of heavy metals, but evolves in a very similar way to life on Earth. So you end up with trilobites made of metal, and there's a really good picture in here somewhere if I could find it. So you get animals made of metal, basically, and those animals made of metal eat and instead of being carbon based like life here on Earth, it's metal based. So they're basically just metallic animals, right?
Right.
And their main organ is something called a Zoid core, which is like their brain and their heart, and basically all their main organs shoved into a big sphere inside their body. Uh, Zoidians were a race of metallic humanoids, it seems.
Metallic humanoids that are able to procreate with humans that arrived on planet Z.
Yes, humans arrive later, but the Zoidians uh, domesticate these metallic animals. That's my picture I'm looking for. It's all laid out in the Zoid Bible, the Zoid Bible. Basically, they domesticate these metallic animals, and they find that, much like, well, they find that because they're made of metal, they can easily modify them, such as putting wheels on them, or other things like spikes for warfare, little driving cabs, so you can use it like a taxi. And you can also add more metal to them to make them big. And they eventually learn that they can tap directly into the Zoid core, which is the brain, uh, and basically just control the animal as a mecha. So you get giant mecha animals, such as this. I gesture to the screen that you can't see, but this right here. This. You get mecha animals. So the effectively we've been calling them lobotomized, and while that's not technically true, you know what we mean.
When you take out like the eyes and like the frontal lobe, that kind of feels like a little out of me,
A little bit.
Place with
But
cockpit,
yeah, but basically, and then all the tribes of Zoidians fighting each other, and humans arrive in a spaceship from Earth, and the humans can somehow interbreed with the Zoidians, which is odd, but also, Zoidians do not have Zoid cores, so that's kind of weird. I don't know about that. I don't know why that is. And to be fair, I think it's kind of cool that it's left open. But anyway, now Zoids have like laser weapons and guided missiles instead of just like normal bullets.
Yeah.
And
Also, a little thing to touch on is that effectively everyone in the series has some sort of marking on their face, and that is because the metals in their body are getting drawn to the surface to make those little symbols.
yes, I had a picture.
And sometimes people will be like, well, I'm with this gang, so we'll all have the same tattoo on our face.
Yeah. It's cool. It's an interesting aesthetic that isn't really present in the follow-up series, but we'll get to that when we talk about that series. But anyway, brief rundown. That's what a Zoidian is. It is a native metallic-based humanoid from Z. So Fiona is one of these metallic people. She doesn't look metallic. She looks normal, but that's fine. And that's what a Zoid is. It's basically a lobotomized, souped-up animal. And there aren't really any wild Zoids anymore. They seem to have been domesticated into extinction in a way.
There are a couple of Zoids that are wandering around. Like, I believe episode 5 or 6, they run into a dinosaur that's kind of like on its still carrying out the orders of its pilot, protecting the little like ruins area that it's in.
Yeah, but it's not a wild Zoid. It's been, lobotomized into a mech. It just does seem to have free will still. Now Zeke seemingly is kind of close to a wild Zoid as far as I'm aware. He doesn't have a cockpit. He has his own personality. You can like sit inside of him though, which is weird, but
only if he opens up and like sucks you in with his cables.
yes. So he can kind of be worn like a mech suit, but like that happens only a couple times, and it's not like they're controlling him.
It's usually just for like, we need to get out of here, hop in the organoid.
Yeah, and an organoid can like fuse with Zoid cores to power them up and to make them strong, basically. But what were we talking about? We're just going over Zoid lore.
Yeah,
Talking about
this was your brief lesson on Zoid lore,
well,
the
it's
quiz will come
important.
at the end
It's
of this.
important because I was like a little confused watching the show, being like, because I'm an adult, and as a kid I've been like, whoa, cool robot, right? But now as an adult, I'm like, why does it look like a dog? And it's like, oh, this is why it looks like a dog. And it's like, oh my god, how horrific.
Oh god, it looks like a dog.
Yeah. Oh gosh, how awful. Um, but yeah, going back to my sort of complaint in the middle of the compliment sandwich, was that the episode of the week format. But my final compliment is kind of a Zoids overall compliment, in that even though it's horrific, I think that lore is like pretty metal. No pun intended. Uh, and also apparently Zoids is like a toy series. We went down like a whole rabbit hole of like extra like Zoid facts, and it's like apparently as a toy series, it existed for like almost a decade as Mechabonica or something like that until it became like Zoids, and then it got the show like 20 years after the whole thing came out. But they did have like little stories with the Zoid kits that kind of mentioned the battles between the Republic and the Empire, but they're slightly different than what happens on the show. So it's like, is that canon or not? Whatever. Your choice, viewer and or reader, what you want to be canon or not. But yeah, as far as the show goes, even though that's not particularly super present, I just as like Zoids in general, I think that lore is really cool.
Oh yeah.
But anyway,
And going to the show as like even just like as monster of the week, it was still pretty good. It was
eh,
still pretty good because a lot of the stuff does come back in the second season.
that is
A lot of it comes back in the
true.
second season when what's his name? When Hiltz was like, "All right, Van, I fucking hate you. I hate you. I despise you. I'm going to go through all the stuff you went through in season 1, every single time you went through, and I'm going to blow them all up
He did do
because I
that. That's
hate
true.
you."
That's true. But yeah, second season is all about this group with their own organoids, which are the sort of wild Zoids. Um, and them going through and they're trying to, be big bads and take over the world. A lot of them are Zoidians, like the original metallic species, woken up through various means, I assume. Do they really go into detail about how, like, some of them.
Not really.
Not really.
I think some of them are just like, I've been alive and now I'm just going to take advantage of the situation. Like Gunther.
Yeah. Raven was like, he was just a normal, either human or like hybrid.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's,
but
if I
he's
remember
super
correctly, I'm pretty
edgy.
sure he's he's a kid, a normal kid, normal human kid, that gets his parents get killed by his organoid,
That's true.
and then
His
he's like, I'm
organoid, Shadow.
actually it was called Ambient first, and then they named it, and then Raven's like, you're not Ambient anymore, you're Shadow.
Uh huh. I hate him so much. You're like, oh, he'll get better, but he never did. So
He goes from being like, Van, I need to fight you to prove that I'm the best, to, all right, Van, let's work together so we don't lose the planet.
I guess he's that peak like early 2000s anime edge of like, ugh, you're weak. Ugh. My little guy's named Shadow. I'm gonna beat you, Van, because you're so weak. Like, I was using 5% of my power. Shut up. Fucking hate him. He's so annoying.
Now, you know who wasn't annoying? Irvine. Irvine was the best.
Irvine was pretty good. Also, I'm gonna find the Genosaur. The only redeeming character of I was gonna call him Shadow, but Shadow the Hedgehog, is that he had a Zoid called the Genosaur, and it was pretty cool.
Like, you didn't like the Genobreaker?
Oh right, Genobreaker was the other one. And when it gets like upgraded, Genobreaker. Yeah, Xenobreaker's pretty cool. It's got like the big crab claws. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
cool. And
Irvine.
at first you were like, ooh, I don't like the Genobreaker. I like the Genosaur better.
Yeah, it grew on me a bit. I do like, I don't know, I don't, whatever. But Irvine's really good. He has his command wolf for the first season, and it gets bodied as it does in the second season. Try to find the command wolf so I could show it. I have the big list of Zoid pictures. But the command wolf's like pretty good jobber suit. Like it shows up a lot as like I think it's the Empire uses a lot or the Republic. I don't remember which. Might be the Republic.
Yes, the Republic uses them more.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, Van's dad, Dan, piloted a command wolf named Zeke, and that is why he called the organoid Zeke.
That is good to know. But yeah, he uses the command wolf for a good portion of the series. It gets bodied, and it's kind of sad because it dies. Because a Zoid is a living creature. Let's not forget, it is a living being. It is capable of just dying, which is sad.
Yeah.
But
then he's like, he took the Zoid core and then he put it in the what was it called?
The lightning sykes.
The lightning Zykes. Oh, so cool.
Which was like an experimental suit by. That's a character I quite like, but we'll get to that. Which is like an experimental Zoid by the military that he ends up taking control of and using to its full efficiency. And it's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. Another good supporting character I quite liked is the professor or the doctor. He shows up pretty early when like a monster of the week plot.
Dr. D.
Dr. D. And then he shows up like again and again and again, and it's like he just kind of becomes part of the squad, and he's pretty good. I quite like him. He's the kooky scientist that loves Zoids.
He's the one that loves Zoids, loves Zoid related stuff. And is the only one that's like, Fiona, you're putting an entire salt shaker of salt into coffee. I love that.
Yeah. Quirky scientist. I forget her name. She drove the
Moonbay?
Moonbay. This is called the Gustav?
Yeah, it's Gustav. The big snail.
Why is it not showing up on here? Oh, no. I mean, I'm not saying it's not the Gustav, but I am saying why isn't it you on the list?
Now, the one complaint I do have about Moonbay is because she keeps singing that damn song.
Yeah, it's really not good. Whatever, I can't find the Gustav. I'm just going to put up the shield Lego. There it is, the shield Lego.
Woohoo!
Yeah, well, her whole thing is like she's like the driver, you know, like it's kind of like you've seen Firefly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Firefly mechanic of you have the pilot slash driver, you have the mercenary, which is Irvine, and he's like, I'm here for money, but not, I guess I'll help, whatever. But he's like,
I guess I like you guys.
yeah,
Baka.
I was gonna say the weird lady, but Fiona's not particularly weird, even though
She's pretty weird.
she's a little weird, but like I don't know, she's not too super weird. And then you have like protagonist, which is what's his face, and you also have Dan Flyheight, and then you also have Zeke, which is a metal dinosaur, and the Doctor, who's a scientist. You know, it's like a classic like group. Like
and then you have in the second season, you have a new character that's a brother of
the Imperial
Carl
officer.
Schuholtz, and he pilots the D Bison and has just R2D2 as an AI unit in it.
He does. This is like that era of anime slash cartoons where I think a lot of the sound effects were from Star Wars were like within a sound library that could be accessed by a lot of these I was going to say developers. That's not the right word. Production companies. Because like the
Yeah.
original Transformers, you'd have like TIE Fighter sounds and stuff. I think LucasArts may have had a sound library that could be licensed. Is my guess. I'm
That wouldn't surprise me.
kind of making that up, but it would.
It's fact.
Yes, it's fact.
It goes into the Zoids Bible.
Zoid's Bible. But yeah, it's like it's just R2D2 in his Zoid being like bleep bloop bloop, and he's like, "What?"
How dare you?
Yeah,
He's also got just like a circuit board for like his comm unit just like on his face.
he does. He also has a gun that the robot is in that is also part of the Zoid. It's very strange.
The gun control stick that also has an AI in it.
Yes, very toy coded, which is fine. But yeah, he's pretty good. His whole thing is like he's like crushing on Fiona, but also a major goofball.
A very honorable type of person.
Yes, very goofy though. And the whole thing is to the group of Zoidians, the antagonist group, they're stirring up trouble. And as the agents of the UN, the Guardian Force fighters, like, why are you doing this? What is your problem? And it turns out they're trying to resurrect an ancient Zoid again. Oh wait, no, they take the cores from ancient Zoids, right? And then they fuse them together.
Yes, they fused a couple of the cores together to make the Death Stinger.
The Death Stinger. There it
And
is.
then they did that, and then I believe they kept doing that, just gathering Zoid cores, and then eventually they know where the Zoid Eve is, so they just bring it all there to resurrect the Death Sword,
And
but even stronger this time.
the Zoid Eve. What do I need to pull up a picture of Zoid Eve? Because I was thinking about that. Zoid Eve.
And the Zoid Eve is kind of like the power supply for all Zoids.
Which is weird because the picture of it and how it's depicted in the show looks like a giant person.
I don't question it.
I won't. So I don't know how it necessarily fits into, like, it could literally be that life on this planet with the Zoid cores was like seeded by Zoidians, and that's why Zoidians don't have Zoid cores because they make the Zoid cores, but Zoidians don't show up later in the timeline. But also, the Zoids Bible could necessarily not be canon as I want it to be, because I actually quite like the Zoids Bible a lot.
It's probably canon, but like in a
the Zoids Bible does mention there is a tribe of highly advanced Zoidians that live under the Earth, under Z, and that's why they had access to dinosaurs, because the dinosaurs down there escaped extinction. It's basically they live in the Hollow Earth. Like, let's just get that out of the way. It's basically there's like a Hollow Earth.
a hollow metal Earth.
Yes, and so the Zoid Eve could be something made by the ancient Zoidians, and the Zoidians lived underground, and then some of them came up. Some, blah, blah, blah. That's all speculation on my part. But until I'm corrected with a better answer, I'm going to go with that as my headcanon. But anyway, they want the Zoid Eve, and Zoid Eve gives control over all Zoid cores on the planet.
And if you destroy the Zoid Eve, you destroy all living Zoids on the planet.
Yes, and they're trying to destroy it. And
well, the bad guys are trying to harness the power of the Zoid Eve.
Harness it, not destroy it, yes.
And then Fiona at the last moment is like, you guys are going to use it for evil? I'll just blow it up.
Yeah. And yeah, the Death Sword, well, the Death Stinger goes about on this rampage by what's his face? Hiltz. And going back to that Monster of the Week type formula, but in reverse, where he's undoing everything that Van had done. All the good deeds being like, oh, you helped this village? Check this out. Die. And just,
Oh, this village that you decided to lie to and say that you were the bandits, and say that the bandits that were chasing you that has a sister in that village is actually the good guy. Yeah, I'm the bad guy. and then that village gets blown up.
Does he destroy that village?
Doesn't he?
I don't remember. He at least tries to. That's for sure. I don't know if it gets destroyed. What? And the Guardian Force fighters come up with a plan to defeat the Death Stinger, which moves at a eye-watering 2 miles a day. They say, like it's moving at 5 kilometers a day, and I'm like, wait, how much? That's 2 miles a day. Like, what are you talking about? But the Doctor comes up with the gravity cannon. Well, first they revive their own Zoid, the Ultrasaurus, which
So
is
big. It's so big and ridiculous.
so gigantic. I can close some of these tabs. Which is a giant, Brontosaurus style walking fortress. Literally, they can launch Zoids out of it, kind of thing. And they install on it a massive cannon called a gravity cannon, which creates a field of extremely high gravity where it's launched. And I think they mentioned they have 3 shots with it in total.
Yeah. They have 3 shots in total with it. And 1 shot is used for testing, and the other 2 are used for combat.
Yes. And they eventually use this to take out the Death Stinger. But what's his face survives.
But Hiltz and his red organoid was not in the Death Stinger when they shot it with the gravity cannon. So then he comes back in, powers up the Death Stinger, and revives it back to life, which also revives Hiltz back to life somehow.
Well, he's a Zoidian. Who knows? Anyway, right, and then where do they go from there? Because they don't fight the Death Stinger again, really.
They do that, and then it's kind of like Fiona gets kidnapped, if I remember correctly.
I
She gets
believe so.
kidnapped, and then they go to the city of the Lost Zoidians, and then you have Gunther kind of monologue as he's a Zoid core that can't walk around, but it's kind of like
Yes, when
he gets around.
the Death Sword was destroyed, he kind of fused with the Zoid core. Was that what was going on, or did the Zoid core become more like him?
Yeah, he fused with the Zoid core, and now it's kind of up in the air whether or not he became the Death Sword or if the Death Sword became him.
Right, but either way, the Gunther's core is used to revive the Death Sword again.
And then he's like, all right, Hiltz, or sorry, not Hiltz. Yes, it is Hiltz. Hiltz, you did a good job, buddy, but I need your Zoid core now. Pulls out the Zoid core and absorbs it into the Death Sword. And he's like, now I'm the strongest ever. And Hiltz is like, motherfucker, I'm in here, and I'm in charge now. I'm taking control of the system from within.
He becomes lobotomized. He is controlled by Hiltz, who pilots the Zoid, who is controlling the Zoid core that is Gunther.
Yeah.
And there's a... Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, am I remembering correctly in that the way the Death Sword is defeated is they launch the Shield Liger from the gravity cannon? Or am I making that up?
Actually, it's the Blade Liger, and yes, they fire the Blade Liger from the gravity cannon up the Death Sword's death beam, right through the Death Sword.
Yes, it is actually is peak cinema. That's the final episode, and right after that, it's kind of like, hey, we did it, and credits. And it's like, oh, okay. There's no denouement or anything where it's like, oh, now everyone lives happily ever after. It's just done. Show over. Yeah. World saved. The end.
Yeah, they're going to the production side of things. This is one of those early 2000s animes that was dubbed in Canada by the Ocean dubbing. I'm pretty sure it was.
That sounds correct.
Kind of an infamous series or infamous studio making the big green dub of Dragon Ball Z.
Oh.
And there were a couple times where it's they'll cut around people holding weapons pointed at each other.
There was that scene where Schultz, right, the army guy of the Empire,
Yeah.
because there's a small subplot where the Emperor of the Empire ends up with the main gang, and he's kind of just hanging out with them. And the Imperial Army, under the command of Gunther, at the time was like, "Oh shit, it's that gang of kids. Let's fucking bomb them, right?" And Schultz is like, "Wait, the Emperor is with them," and they're like, "Nah, it's probably an imposter. Bomb him." And he's like, "No, I'm gonna hit the big self-destruct button or whatever on the base," and they're like, "Stop him!" And they just kind of like point their fingers at him. But I'm
Yeah.
guessing that in the original they maybe had weapons in their hands or something because it looked very strange. They like freeze him with points, you know?
But yeah, I mean, despite it being an early 2000s dub, it's actually not the worst.
No, I mean honestly, the voice acting was perfectly fine. Like I
Oh
don't
yeah.
think we always look up the voice actors for stuff like this, and I don't think some of them I think went on to continue doing a bunch of stuff like later on with like big shows like other animes and stuff. But I
Oh
don't.
yeah. Like there were a couple characters like Light Yagami from Death Note. Like any kind of anime that's been dubbed in Canada has like a couple of voice actors in the show.
Yeah, but I mean overall, it's like even though it's a little dated, it's like 25 years old now. Uh, it's still pretty solid. Like overall, I give it like a what would I give it? 7? A little long. I think if it was like 50 episodes, I would give it a 7, but because it's like almost 70 and some of those are just Monster of the Week, I might give it a 6.5. Not to say I didn't like it. It's just a little long sometimes, you know?
Oh yeah. Like some of those episodes of the week was
Can we
like
talk about the ghost?
yeah, we can talk about the ghosts.
There's a whole episode where Van meets a ghost, and that ghost has a Zoid, and that Zoid is also a ghost. And you're like, huh, I wonder how this is going to fit into the rest of the plot. Guess what? It doesn't. It's just a ghost. And a Zoid ghost. Eh,
Listen, don't worry about it. It's the episode of the week. Here's your main story. Here's your main plot. Next week.
pretty much, yeah. Or like, yeah, there are a couple episodes where it's just like, what was the point of any of this? Oh, I do also appreciate going back to like the characters like main group and like the net of characters that help support the protagonist. There's the two former bandits from season 1 that show up in like episode 2, and they're bandits, and they're like, we want that dang organoid because it's worth bazillions of Zoidian coins or whatever.
Yeah.
And they have like they have like the whole arcs, and they show up as like jobbers in like the later season, but as like
Here's
good jobbers.
here's the thing is that so they kidnap the emperor at one point.
They do that.
Kidnap in quotes. And then the emperor is like, "Oh, you guys aren't so bad after all." And like, "Yeah, we aren't so bad after all." And like, "Okay, we kind of like you, kid." And they basically end up being like his adopted parents.
Yeah.
And then eventually the Empire shows up and is like, "Give us the Emperor." And they're like, "No, we're not. Emperor, get out of here." And then they die. They just get blown up. They get blown the fuck up. And then they just show up like 5 or 6 episodes later with masks on, being like, we are the wings of justice coming at you from above. We will light up the liberty." And they do that. They come in. They say some really badass monologue, drops missiles. They'll job or they'll leave.
They usually job.
They usually job.
I don't remember what the name of those Zoids are. They were really sick. They're like the pterodactyls with the pointy beaks.
The
But
silver flyers.
silver flyers, is that what it is?
That's not their actual name, but that's like a very accurate description that sets them apart from the others.
Yeah, can't. I don't remember the name. Unfortunately, some of these Zoid names also escape me. the Iron Kong monkey. Uh,
Monkey.
every time the Iron Kong showed up, we would just go monkey. It doesn't help that Lieutenant Schultz's primary Zoid is monkey. But yeah, I mean, overall, it was like solid series. Early, so it had a lot of the same flaws that early dubbed anime has. Uh, more geared towards children than adults, probably.
Yeah, I would say out of all the Zoids are definitely geared towards the like
I mean, it is.
10 to 15 kind of age demographic.
Yeah, it is a anime for selling Zoid toys. You know, even if it does have some pretty metal lore, it is what it is. But yeah, overall,
It is what it is.
I quite liked it. Even if I gave it a 6.5, 6.5 still means I like it. I'm not gonna be one of those people that's like 6.5, trash. Anything below a 7, garbage.
So once you get below a 5, that's when it's like, ugh. That's when it's all over.
That's when shit starts getting good though, because that's when it starts to loop back. Like once it hits 5, it's like, just kind of
all right,
dull.
so here's how it goes. Here's how it goes. 10, masterpiece, cannot be overthrown at all. Ever.
1, also a masterpiece, but in a different way.
5, mid.
Yeah, exactly. It's better than mid, and it's not terrible, and it's got some good moments, but it is a little long.
I feel like this is a good comparison to Gundam, the original series.
Yeah, I would say that.
Because it's a long story is the very first entry. There are some things that show up in the next series, and overall the quality jumps dramatically from season 1 to, or part 1, Chaotic Century, to New Century.
That is also, again, important to note that this is the first Zoid TV show with 70 episodes, which is quite long, and it's kind of amazing that the animation holds up as well as it does, considering how long that budget needs to stretch for.
Yeah, to be fair, I feel like a lot of those shots are reused of Zoids.
Oh
like
yeah,
the amount of times that the command wolf has run away from the camera to spin around and come right back at the camera.
Guys, you're not gonna
happens a lot.
Guess what? Zeke is doing his animation. He's gonna fly into the blade Lego. Whoa!
You're gonna see his boosters come up, and he's gonna fly up into the sky, and he's gonna make like some sort of weird monster face as he lands into the Zoid. The Zoid's gonna light up, and then it's gonna power up, and it's gonna go beat the bad guy.
And the background might change.
Maybe.
Yeah, that I think that was a good talk about Chaotic Century. Do you have anything else to mention?
Yeah, it was not bad. It was not bad. It was, I would say about like a 6 out of 10. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good setup to the world of Zoids. Yeah, well,
as the beginning of Zoids, it is a good entry point.
Yeah, though it is long. Well, I mean, if that's it, then the next thing we're going to talk about in the next episode of this yapping about stuff is Zoid's New Century. It's gotten a lot less chaotic.
New Century.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot less chaotic, and I think
it's also a lot shorter,
significantly. But yeah, so hey, go
watch it.
Yeah, go watch it. Or
go watch it. Go find some of the model kits.
I actually do want to get some of the model kits now. I'm kind of Zoid pilled at the moment. I'm not gonna lie.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. My feed has been inundated with just Zoid model kits, and I'm like, man, Command Wolf really is cool.
There's I don't remember a specific model, but there was some of the like variations of Zoids show up, which is cool. There was like a Command Wolf that was just like an one-off thing of has like roll bows on its cockpit and like missile pods on its cheeks. So cool. Anyway, go lobotomize your dog and run him around.
Hell yeah.
For the greater republic.
Remember to always strive to become a member of the Guardian Force Fighters.
Yeah.